Hello all, taking a break from the history stuff, although I'm never really free from it. And I wanted to talk about Far Cry 6. Seeing some pictures and reading more about it, it intrigued me. I am replaying Far Cry 3 again, just because it's the last one that has a somewhat similar look to the FC6 pics, but that's beside the point. I will discuss a little of what we know about the game and my thoughts on that, and my minor predictions for what we might see in the game itself. But before we begin, please consider subscribing to help grow the channel, and click the bell button to be notified for more history and game videos. Also, check out my Patreon page, and join others to help support the channel. You are playing a freedom fighter this time around, named DANI ROJAS. And like Far Cry New Dawn, you can select if they are going to be male or female. DANI will have a voice, and I'm assuming a voice during the game, and not just cutscenes. We'll also get to learn DANI's story, so this may be a more in-depth look than we've ever gotten with a Far Cry protagonist before. Well, Far Cry New Dawn did a quick minute of a supporting character talking about life before the game, but didn't give us a lot of details of the main protagonist. And as far as other protagonists went, you can find their backstories on the internet, but their previous life details never really seemed to matter all too much for us to know before the game started. Most of the characters were thrust into the world and had to develop and think on the go, with no matter what they felt, there was always some confusion or shock about what happened next in their story. The other Far Cry protagonists all had motives. Most had voices to express those motives, but while some of them could tell us how they thought, we never really got to see what formed their childhood experiences. I have no idea how far we'll go back with DANI's story, but since the developers made a point to mention it as an important detail, I feel we'll at least get a good insight of DANI's childhood. Also, unlike most protagonists in the series, DANI knows the antagonist, and has grown up in an environment shaped by them. The emotions DANI is going to have for his or her motives are going to be more in line with hate, anger, and determination, rather than shock, fear, and confusion. Unlike Jason, AJ, Takar, and Rook, who found themselves freedom fighters overnight, DANI is going to be very different emotionally and mentally than what we've ever experienced before in a Far Cry protagonist. Since it sounds like they're going to take the time to explain the character's story, we might actually have a character arc, and therefore a closer attachment to the character like we did with Jason in Far Cry 3. I'm looking forward to more details on DANI in the coming months. While many of the screenshots show various locations around the island, mostly looking in rural jungle and town areas, we'll also be having a decent amount of urban gameplay. In all the Far Cry environments, from tropical islands to backwoods Africa and the Himalayas, we've never experienced an urban Far Cry before. We've gone through villages and small towns before, but nothing like a big, dense city. Game director Navid Kavari has stated that the game will have verticality. While you look into the dictionary to check if that's an actual word, that hints that the urban gameplay is going to be a substantial part. But this is a dangerous departure perhaps. Far Cry's draw is the locations that we get to travel to and try to survive in. An urban setting is something that many people are experienced with, and will no doubt remind players of other urban games like Call of Duty and Battlefield. But the crazy Far Cry contraptions and guerrilla fighting will no doubt give us a different feel to it, I hope. So rooftop fighting, sneaking into basements, taking cover behind cars, enemies shouting stuff at you in Spanish or in heavy Spanish accents, it will be like you just got dropped onto the set of Netflix's Narcos. But there will also be tanks, which is something we really haven't had to deal with yet. Ubisoft is not letting anyone see too much of the urban areas yet, so we'll just have to guess for now. The setting is current day, on an island dictatorship called YARA, which the developers say they fashioned after Cuba, and I don't know if they're trying to make a statement or something with that. Now they describe it as a place where time is standing still, and that many of the buildings are going to look as if they are from the 1960s. They may mix in some modern buildings to parts of the city just to make things look unique, however. We'll be getting a dog with its own story, the developers said, and while cute, we probably know it's going to be just as murderous as any other animal in the Far Cry series. Also, most Far Cry games are linked into the same universe. Each story is unique and different, with Far Cry Instincts and New Dawn being the only true sequels in the franchise. But this doesn't mean that the series doesn't connect. The protagonists from the original game, Jack, and Far Cry 3's Jason, are both mentioned by Herc in Far Cry 4 as his tattoo bros. Herc himself has been in Far Cry's 3, 4, and 5, with an ancestor displayed in Far Cry Primal, linking those games to the same universe. Agent Willis has been in the same games, minus the Primal ancestor. A revolution against a dictatorship that is on a fictional Cuba of sorts sounds like something Agent Willis would be all over. Now, if he survived the events in Far Cry 5, or if this game takes place before that, we'll just have to see if he makes an appearance. Also, Far Cry's 2, 3, and 4 all had blood diamonds in them. We don't know if those will be back though, since they were not really in Far Cry 5. The point is, it's the same universe. We'll just have to see what the timeline is before making sure it's before Far Cry 5. The last major thing that we know is Giancarlo Esposito will be voicing the main antagonist, El Presidente Antonio Castillo. Of course, most people have seen him on Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul. Speaking of the latter, if you haven't watched the series, the character Nacho is played by Michael Mando, who voiced Vaz in Far Cry 3. I wonder if they talked about the games together. IGN or somebody should do that. Even with the trailer, we know that Giancarlo, I just call him Gus for short though, is going to do a spectacular job. But basically, the island is erupting in revolution, protests, and riots that we'll be a part of, and we'll be challenging the dictator Castillo. This is of course not the first time we've taken on a dictator, if all of you remember Pagan Min from Far Cry 4. The game needs to be careful not just to recycle tropes and actions already used in that game. Now, there will most likely be similarities, but the characters are different in several ways. Pagan Min was charming, and made pleasant chat that went along with his big helping of insanity with the side of Crab Rangoon. Castillo, on the other hand, sounds more strict, overbearing, stoic. Both used propaganda, but will be playing a character who has grown up in it, rather than Ajay, who came in from the outside. Both were trying to influence characters as father figures, Pagan Min with Ajay, and Diego, who is Castillo's son. Diego gets to grow up with him and is being shaped by him. But of course in the trailer, we see that he is young and unsure. Diego is a wild card at this point, and will most likely determine his actions based on what we do in the game. Now those are my thoughts on what we know so far. So now let's think about what direction the story and gameplay might take. I'll just get this out of the way now. I really hope to the gaming gods that there is no tier-based combat system with bullet sponge enemies and unrealistic health bars. I feel that it was just there to lengthen the game instead of creating smart AI for the New Dawn game. Some enemies in Far Cry 5 would get wounded and revived by their buddies. That's fine. I think it makes it more challenging knowing that a potential combatant can get picked back up and engage you again if you didn't make sure that they stayed down or stopped their buddies from reviving them. That can come back. Not the ridiculous bullet sponges though. Others might have liked it, but that was just to pad things out and hopefully drive you to go buy the in-game currency rather than doing the heavy grinding for those same upgrades and materials. This is the only thing I'm really afraid of. If this same tier-based combat is in FC6, it's going to severely dampen my want to buy it, I'm not gonna lie. Okay, as far as the story goes, we can expect to make some friends along the way, to lose other friends, and insane firefights using crafted weapons from our small guerrilla war machine. And we are going to make some decisions that will influence the gameplay or story. Obviously, things will come to a head between DANI, Diego, and Antonio. Antonio may die, but he may also pull a Pagan Min and bug out of there. But it seems like it's going to come down to DANI and Diego. Simply, either we are going to get him to join us in our cause, or he's going to fight against us. This brings me to a related topic. We know the ending is going to be messed up somehow. That is a Far Cry standard. I know New Dawn tried to have some semblance of an okay ending, which was weak and a little weird for the series. And Primal wasn't really happy if you think about it too long and realize you just genocided 2 other tribes and cherry-picked their useful inventions for your own. The last time we had a big choice for the ending of the game was Far Cry 5, and there was complaining that the ending was bad, structure-wise. And yes, having the illusion of choice didn't really work because, spoiler alert, the nuke would have gone off anyway, so your perceived choice was null and void and didn't have a drastic impact on the events like Jason's or Ajay's decisions did. But if you were a Far Cry veteran, you probably half expected the nuke to actually happen though anyway. Esposito hinted that multiple endings might be in the mix, so we'll just have to wait. But it looks like making crucial decisions with story-changing implications might be back though. And I'm sure Diego is going to be a major part of it. Diego is a major focus in the trailers, and yet he's not discussed widely in interviews so far. So here's what I think for possible endings to Far Cry 6. Ending number 1. We'll get Diego to join us and use his connections to help set up a new government after defeating Castillo. The messed up part, though, would be that he'll probably claim power after gaining our trust and kill us after taking command of the revolution. Alternatively, he recruits us into continuing fighting for his version of the revolution. Number 2. He'll outright fight us, due to witnessing the brutality of our choices in the game, but he loses. Either we'll exile him, imprison him, or kill him. The bad part about the ending, though, would be that we now declare ourselves dictator, or one of our comrades does, causing more civil war. And number 3, we defeat all enemies and Antonio and Diego are at our mercy. Everything we fought for and bled for has led up to this point of victory. But then, international security forces step in to quote-unquote help. They depose Antonio because he was a dictator, but the new government now is corrupted by foreign corporations and interests, something that Antonio, ironically, has always kept out of the country. And now we slowly realize that while Antonio was bad, this corruption of your dream is much worse. We possibly get labeled as a troublemaker ourselves for trying to do something about it, and get thrown in jail by the government we fought to create, right next to Antonio, to rot away. In any case, the ending is going to be messed up. It just wouldn't be a Far Cry game otherwise. Far Cry 6 is scheduled for next February, so there will be tons more information on the way. But let me hear what you think. Do you have predictions for Far Cry's ending? Do you think the urban settings will change the feel of a Far Cry game drastically? How do you think DANI, Diego, and El Presidente Castillo will interact with each other? Let me know in the comments below. But that's the episode for today, and I hope you enjoyed it. Please click the like button to help bring this video to new viewers and subscribe for more future content on Far Cry 6 and history videos. Also consider supporting the channel on Patreon and get your name in the credits. Or use the link provided for downloading the free web browser Brave for more privacy on your internet. Lastly, I would like to thank all my subscribers for continuing to support the channel, and a thank you to all of you who are here for the first time. I'm Eric the LonePineWolfman, and remember gamers, never stop learning.